What doth be up, party people, hi diddly ho diddly neighborinos, and respectful salutations to you, Bobby Beetlejuice Brackens. Today we are doing something incredibly exciting. If you don't know by now, we are going through every single mythic in Magic the Gathering's main sets. Olive D Mythics. If this is the first time you're seeing this, you are late to the party, Mr. Brackens.
Party foul.
That's party foul, Bob. You need to get back to episode number 1 where we do Alara, and then come and meet me here. Anyway, today we are doing core set 2010, also known as M10, Magic 2010 core set. It's got a lot of names, Bob, and it did a lot of things. This is the first modern core set that Magic released, if you want to look at it that way. A lot of things changed with the release of this core set. Before this, core sets were named by edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition,
6th, 7th, 8th,
so on and so forth. But now they start being named by the year that they were gonna be standard legal. This set was released in July 17th, 2009. It was going to spend most of the time of its standard legality in 2010, Magic 2010. Few interesting things about Magic 10. Wow. Anyway, M10 was the first core set since beta, all the way back in 1993, to actually feature new cards printed for that specific core set. Wow. There were many of them. So that was pretty legit, Bob. It was also the first core set to feature Planeswalkers, and the very first core set to feature mythic rare cards. Wow. Hence why it's the first core set we are covering on this show. We're only interested in the Mythics, Bob. Only the Mythics. Wow. There was also a fair amount of, really game-changing things that happened. Some just having to do with the nomenclature of different areas and aspects of the game, and others having to do with actual, deeply ingrained parts of the gameplay itself. For example, Battlefield became a term printed on cards, so instead of putting cards into play or having the battlefield be known as the in-play zone, which I don't know how it went on for so long being called the in-play zone. That is just really stupid. I don't know, I feel like if I was developing Magic the Gathering, it would have been the battlefield since the very beginning, because it's just the only thing that makes sense. But these strings are going to drive me crazy, Bob. Also, Exile became a thing here. Instead of cards being removed from the game, they were exiled instead, and Exile became a zone, instead of just being taken out of the game and burned in a furnace or something, which I guess people were doing before. Whoosh. Yes, indeedy. Mana pools emptied at the end of each step, and probably the biggest change was the removal of mana burn, which was a thing since the game's creation, where if you had extra mana at the end of a turn left over, it would deal damage to you based on how much extra mana you had that you didn't end up using. And it was really controversial removing that. Yeah, it totally changed the game. So that was an extreme change that came with the M10 core set, Mr. Brackens. Another quite contentious point was the decision to have damage not be put on the stack. Combat damage was no longer put on the stack like spells and abilities, And so that changed the dynamics of the ways a lot of popular cards worked, and the people were furious. But they got over it eventually. Yeah, other than that, they changed it so that blockers are assigned damage in succession instead of all at once. That changed some dynamics. I don't really understand that. It's kind of complicated, Bob. But yeah, that was a thing. I'm sure that mattered more in like more competitive settings. And finally, Death Touch and Lifelink were finally keyworded after basically existing through the game's entire history and just had a simple keyword. Also, with this set, flying stopped being described in depth on the cards, and people were just expected to know what flying does from that moment on. Which I think is appropriate, because it's really simple. Get good, noob. Alright, so now we're going to get into this. Sorry for that a little bit longer introduction, but there was just more than usual about this set that was worth mentioning. Another 15 Mythics to go through. We haven't done a big set in a while with 15 Mythics, so sit back and enjoy this. We're going to pop off right now. We're going to start with the 5 Planeswalkers in this set. I can't say they were introduced in this set because it's actually the Lorwyn 5. That is the very first 5 Planeswalkers that were printed back in the Lorwyn block a few years before, and they were just reprinted into this M10 core set, except in the Mythic rarity instead of just being rares. First up to bat, we got a Johnny Goldmane. He costs 2 white, and he comes out with 4 loyalty counters. You can +1 him to gain 2 life. You could choose to -1 him and give a +1/+1 and vigilance to all your creatures until end of turn. Or you could go for the big -6 and create an avatar token with power and toughness equal to your life total, Bob, which is hopefully high, or this sucks. Second member of the Lorwyn 5 is Chandra Nalaar. She's going to set you back 3 generic mana and 2 red, and comes out with 6 loyalty counters. Miss Nalaar is able to be +1 in order to deal 1 damage to a target opponent. Hey, it's a free damage. Or you could go for that -X and deal X damage to target creature, not player. But you're really going to want to do this -8 ability, which is going to do 10 damage to a target player and every single creature they control. Yeah, let's go ahead and see it, Bob. Boom. Third Planeswalker, we got my boy Garruk Wildspeaker. He's going to be coming out for 2 generic and 2 green. And he comes out with 3 loyalty counters. You can +1 to untap 2 whole lands, -1 to create a 3/3 beast token, or do the -4, all creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample till end of turn. So you can get this guy to that ultimate extremely fast, so it's kind of cool. But it's not really that great of an ultimate, but it's fast. Alright, 4, we got an icon. This is the first glimpse the world ever had of Jace Beleren. He's also the cheapest of the 5 Lorwyn Planeswalkers at 1 generic and 2 blue mana. Comes out with 3 loyalty, and he's also really the hardest one to get to the ultimate, I would say. This is the only one I actually own a copy of in my personal collection. I do play with him sometimes. Had some good times. So he works like this. You could +2 for each player to draw a card, you know. It's kind of nice. You do get the card draw, but you don't get card advantage. But if you don't have any other way to get through your deck, it can be nice. But if you don't like the idea of helping out your opponent, you could do -1 to just have that card draw directed at yourself. And then if you can manage to keep Jace alive and undamaged for at least 4 turns, you can do the mighty -10 and have a target opponent mill 20 cards. That means just take 20 cards from the top of their deck and put it in their graveyard. It's hilarious if you can actually get it off, but I have one with this Jace Beleren card. I've milled out opponents. It feels amazing. It's always memorable, but it's not the easiest way to mill out your opponent that I can say. It's kind of a win more card if you're going to do that. You have to already have a pretty good board state to be able to protect Jace long enough to do this, but it's just kind of a hilarious thing if you feel like doing that. Okay, last up we got Liliana Vess. She costs 3 generic mana, 2 black mana, and comes out with 5 loyalty counters. +1 Liliana to make target player discard a card. Always a good thing. You can -2 to search your library for any card you want and put it on the top of your library after shuffling. So, yeah, these first 2 abilities are really good, you know. Even if she can't stick around to the ultimate, you can get some good value off of the time that you do have with her. But if you're lucky enough to get her at 8 counters or more, you can -8 to put all creatures from all graveyards onto the battlefield under whose control? Your control. Alright, so that was the 5 Planeswalkers of the Lorwyn 5 in M10 core set, but we still have 10 more regular mythic rare cards to go through that aren't Planeswalkers. So you still with me, Mr. Brackens? Hang in there. We're going to it now. We'll start things off with Bogardan Hellkite. That's going to cost us 6 generic and 2 red. It's a 5/5 with flash and flying. And it gets straight to the point. Mr. Bogardan Hellkite does not mince words. As soon as he enters the battlefield, you can divide 5 damage as you see fit among target creatures or players. So yeah, expensive, but effective. Next up we got Darksteel Colossus, an icon among artifact creatures. He costs 11 generic mana. Kind of reminiscent of an Eldrazi, but he's got nothing to do with Eldrazi, really. Yeah. But take a look at this dude. 11/11 with trample and indestructible. Whoo-wee, Bob. That is some serious clout. And also can't really be taken out. He's indestructible, but if you mill him out of your deck or just find some other way, like through a sacrifice, to get him into your graveyard, instead of going in your graveyard, he gets shuffled back into your deck. So it's amazing. 8, we have the iconic Baneslayer Angel. That costs 3 generic and 2 white. It is a 5/5 flying with first strike and lifelink. Protection from demons and dragons. Yeah, this one had a pretty incredible run through standard. It was just a great card for 5 mana for, a pretty extended amount of time, and took a while for it to get dethroned. It was just a super value-packed creature. Even without that protection mattering in most scenarios, it was just a power-packed card. And just really a staple to have in any white deck you had, Bobby Brackens. 9, we have a Sphinx Ambassador. 5 generic and 2 blue is the mana cost. And it's a 5/5 with flying and a kind of strange ability. But whenever this Sphinx deals combat damage to a player, you get to search through their library and choose a card from it, and then they have to guess which card you chose, and if they're wrong, then you get to play that card. So it's pretty interesting, I would just assume that you can't, take the very best card in their deck, because they'll know what that is and probably guess that, or just guess it anyway to make sure you don't get it. But, it's kind of tricky, it's kind of fun, kind of cheeky. I would like to play this one. That'd be kind of a fun thing to do. Next up, we have a kind of a strange one. It's a Master of the Wild Hunt. That costs 2 and 2 green, and it's just a 3/3. It's got this weird thing where at the beginning of your upkeep, you can create a 2/2 wolf token, and then I've read this card a bunch of times. It took me forever to kind of understand it, but I think the gist of what's happening here is that you can use those wolf tokens and any other wolves you might control to, perform an attack not on your attack step. So it's a way of having, like, it's a way of attacking not on your combat step. So, like, on your first or second main phase, you can attack. And so I guess if that was important in some way, it gives you an outlet in which to perform that action. So it's interesting. I can't think of how I would use it right off the bat, but it's interesting. Next up, we got a super classic. It is Protean Hydra. It's got a cost of X and 1 green. It's summoned as a 0/0, but it gets X +1/+1 counters. It's just kind of a fun thing, you know what I mean? It prevents damage and you remove +1/+1 counters instead of taking damage. But then if you survive till your end step, or if the Hydra survives until your end step, it gets like twice as many +1/+1 counters as were taken off. So, you know, it's that old trope, Bob. What doesn't kill it makes it stronger. What doesn't kill it makes it stronger. Yeah, you know what it is, Mr. B. I had this one in foil back in the day. I was really excited about it. Really excited. Wow. Alright, next up we got Xanthorid Demon. It's a 3 generic and 3 black. And it's a big 7/7 with flying and trample. And this realm, when you're messing around with these kind of things, it has a super big catch. It's dangerous. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to sacrifice one of your creatures every turn, and then it deals damage to your opponent equal to the sacrificed creature's power. But if you should somehow run out of creatures to supply this guy, then he just starts turncoating, tapping on your turn, and doing 7 damage to you. So he's gonna take you out quickly. He is really mad about you not having creatures to sacrifice, Bob. So I wouldn't mess around with this cat. He's dangerous. All right, next up, 13, we have Time Warp. This one's crazy, Bob. I had no idea a spell like this existed in the M10 core set. I wish I had cracked more packs of it back in the day in hopes of getting this, because it's just nice and clean. 5 mana sorcery for take an extra turn after this one. Classic blue extra turn spell. Yeah, not much more to say about this. I'm salty because I don't have it. 14, we have yet another icon, Platinum Angel. That is 7 generic mana for a 4/4 flying with probably the funniest ability ever. Just the wording on this card is so amazing. It never ceases to amaze me. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. Simple as that, Bob. As long as Platinum Angel is on the field, you are good to go. You can't lose, your opponents can't win. They have to take out that Platinum Angel. So get some hexproof on that and let the good times roll. Alright, last up, we got my boy Vampire Nocturnus. That's going to be 1 generic and 3 black for this Master Vampire boy. He is a 3/3, which stipulates that you play with the top card of your library revealed, and as long as it's black, all vampires, including Nocturnus, get +2/+1 and flying. So they just have +2/+1 and flying as long as you have a black card at the top of your deck. So, assuming you're playing an all-black deck, that is muy bueno. And alright, Bobby, we are through another one. We have gone through another list here at Olive D Mythics. That was Magic 10 core set. The time is upon us, Bob. It's time to get into everyone's favorite set. Okay, maybe I can't just say that about everyone, but you know what I mean, Bobby. It is Zendikar block. We are starting with old school Zendikar. I haven't looked at the list for this yet. I don't remember every single mythic in this set, but I am really excited to get into it with you. I hope you are too. Thank you for tuning in to another epic creation here on Ron King Magic. We will see you next time for Zendikar. Remember to be a lovey-dovey and like and subscribe. Peace.